Welcome back to the workshop. It's Tim for Tim Cross Electronics, and we're going to keep working on this AB165 Bassman head today. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install an inline fuse for the filaments on this amplifier because it didn't originally have a fuse. So the 6L6 power tubes are drawing 900 milliamps of current apiece, so that's 1800 milliamps there, and then another 300 milliamps per preamp tube. So we've got a total of 3 amps of filament current. So I'm going to put a 4 amp slow blow fuse in line with the filament supply. Now I brought my heat gun in, so I was able to put some heat shrink on this power cord coming in here. Remember I nicked the green wire a little bit when I was stripping it, so that'll cover that. And this is the inline fuse that we're going to be using. The leads that came on it were 12 gauge, way too heavy for what we're doing, so I had to splice on some 18 gauge wire. I wish I'd noticed this when I bought these, because I bought 10 of them, I think. But anyway, this is, you can see how thick that 12 gauge wire is. There is no way I want to work with that. Hopefully I'm holding it somewhere you can actually see it. So what I'm going to do is I'll attach it here. I'm going to lift one of these filament wires from the first power tube. I'll just actually take that wire completely out, and then one end will go where that was there, and then the other end will come over here to the lamp. And I'm going to leave a little extra length and just kind of fold it over and zip tie it so that if someone ever does have to replace this fuse, they'll have an easy time doing it because there will be a little extra slack there. Okay, so the other end comes down here. Move these out of the way. Other end comes down here to this end of the lamp, and that's actually where the filament power is entering the circuit from the power transformer. Now it's not going to matter that these filament wires aren't twisted anymore at this end, because there's nothing sensitive at this end of the amplifier that can pick up any hum from this. If it were at the preamp end, then I would definitely want to make sure that the wires get twisted. But in this case, I want it to stay loose so that it's easy to change that fuse if someone needs to. And this is going to be the tricky part, getting this fished through here. I might have to unsolder the other wire too and start with a clean solder joint. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, clean that up and we'll start fresh. Okay, so now this is secure, but there's enough length on there that if we need to change this fuse, it's not going to give us a hard time. Okay, these wires want to move, so I'm just going to tack these in place with a little bit of solder. Alright, so here's our MOVs. One from green to black, maybe. I'm not going to be able to get these leads bent over on the ends, unfortunately, because it's just there's no way I'd be able to get my fingers in there. So one from green to black, one from... Oh, come on. Okay, so one from green to black, one from black to white, and this wants to fight me. Get out of there. You know what, I'm going to have to tip this up. Okay, that's a little better. Alright, one from green to black, one from black to white, and one from green to white. Those will sit in there just like that. Looks like they're staying still for me. And then finally the CL60 thermistor. And I'm going to leave that a little proud in there because I'm going to have to bend that away from everything else once it's soldered in, because that will generate some heat. Okay, bring that out a little bit. And let's make this look prettier. No reason for it to be ugly. Now this wire is coming over, which one is that? That is going to the switch. Take this glass fuse out of here because I want to clean up this solder joint, and I don't know what would happen if I got this fuse really hot. It might blow it, I don't know. Since I'm doing this Pentode-triode switch, I'm going to have to remove these screen resistors. This is going to come up here through a new resistor with longer leads up to the switch, and then depending on which way the switch is going, the screen of each tube will be either switched to that resistor or switched through the other side of the switch to the plate of the same tube. Okay, so now from the switch I'm going to run some, this is 600 volt 22 gauge wire. Okay, I'm starting to get a blob of solder on this tube pin here. So I need to clean this up, and let's see if I can zoom in close enough for you to actually see that. Right here on this solder, on this tube pin, we're getting a big blob of solder. And that's the sort of thing that can cause issues down the road, because it's not going to allow this pin to move freely. And I've run into this problem with my own builds in the past, where the solder dripped down, the pin wasn't moving freely, and so the pin on the actually coming from out of the tube was not making a solid connection in the socket pin. I remember that was one of those really frustrating ones that I just couldn't figure out, because everything looked just fine. And it ended up just being a sloppy solder joint. Okay, I realized that I had hooked these two wires up backwards, the resistor and the wire going to the screen. I stopped recording and fixed that. And then I also brought a couple of wires, 3 wires, over to this terminal strip. That was extremely tedious. I figured that wasn't worth recording. But basically what I did was I went to the plates of both of these power tubes and soldered in an extra brown wire for the brown side and a blue wire for the blue side. And so these plates are now wired into, well, they're not soldered yet, but they'll be wired into these terminals here. And then this red wire here is soldered into the center tap for the output transformer. So now I'll have one of these going between the center tap and the blue plate, and one going between the center tap and, I'll have to bend the leads out a little bit to get to it, but center tap and the brown plate. Okay, so that's it for the mods. We've got protection against spikes in the output transformer. We've got protections against spikes at the input of the power transformer. We've got protection against inrush current. We've got an inline fuse for the filament supply. And we've done that Pentode-triode mod with this switch here. So now what I'm going to do, before I power this up, I am going to, as I always do, just look over everything really carefully and make sure I haven't missed anything, because mistakes happen. This is, nothing that I did here is anything that can't be undone. I haven't drilled any holes, I haven't cut any of the original wires that were in here, and even the wires that I did take off here, I put them in a baggie with all the other parts that I've removed. So at any time down the road, if somebody wants to return this to the original condition, they can do that. So I'm going to stop for the day. I'm going to look over this, make sure that I didn't make any mistakes here, and then I'll come back whenever I have a chance to get back here and bring it up slowly on the Variac and check for any noise, and then hopefully we'll be ready for a sound test. Now, one other thing I forgot to mention. These capacitors from the phase inverter that I plan on replacing, I did order some capacitors. I made the mistake of ordering them off of Amazon because I was placing an order for something anyway, and I didn't check to see where they were coming from. They're coming all the way from China, so they're not going to be here for probably another 2 weeks. Shipping is really slow on those. So, I just won't show that in these videos. I'll do that after I wrap everything else up, because that's just going to be, it'll be pretty quick just popping those in. Okay, I brought up the amp slowly on the Variac. No smoke, no fire, that was a good sign. But I wasn't getting any filament voltage. Nothing was glowing. And so I checked the fuse, and sure enough, the filament fuse had blown. So I put a new fuse in there. I thought maybe just got a bad fuse. I don't know. Doesn't seem like it should be blowing already. Checked my connections to make sure that I hadn't wired something wrong and caused a short circuit somewhere. Everything was fine. So I put the new fuse in and turned it back on again, and I got lights. Everything was glowing as it should, and as soon as the power tubes heated up enough, then I heard some other problems, and I was getting a lot of hum and a lot of really nasty squeals from it. And so after doing some tube swapping, I found out that one of the power tubes was microphonic, and it was just kind of in rough shape. When you shook it, it rattled pretty badly. 2 of the preamp tubes were also microphonic, and one of them had a really bad flash when you first powered the amp on. So these old power tubes, these were RCAs, still are RCAs actually. And I think these are the reason that that I blew the filament fuse. I wasn't sure what the filament was supposed to be measuring, so I checked these new ones that I put in here, and those were both right around 2 ohms. These were measuring, well, one of them was measuring 1.5 ohms, the other one was all the way down to 1.2 ohms. So I think that's probably why I was blowing the fuses. These were just drawing excess current. So I took out all of those tubes. I happened to have a new set of JJ 6L6s, so I put those in there. And I didn't have any 12AX7s, so I've got a couple of 12AT7s in where I took those 2 preamp tubes out. But I'm still getting a little bit of hum. It's not microphonic anymore. It's not squealing when I turn it on. But I'll show you, turn on the Variac. And I've still got the Variac turned down just under 100 volts because I haven't biased these power tubes yet. So, but you'll hear when they heat up. I'll just take a minute here. It's not a terrible hum, but it's bad enough that I want to fix it. And I think it's coming from the filaments, because I noticed as I was looking inside this that crap. Well, I guess I'll have to sort that out. But anyway, the hum, I didn't, you know what? Last time I turned it on, it didn't do that. One other thing that I noticed was that 3 of the 4 preamp tube sockets are really sloppy. And I went through and tightened the pins as much as I could, but they still just, everything feels really loose. And so I may end up replacing all of the preamp sockets. I've got some, what did I do with them? Hang on. Some of these, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, really good quality porcelain sockets. So I may end up putting some of these in there and just replacing all of those preamp sockets, because I'm starting to wonder if maybe that has something to do with the noise, because I did, at first I was hearing a little bit of popping as well. And here you can see what I'm talking about. All those are really sloppy. This one's just fine. But all 3 of these are really sloppy, and that's after going through and tightening all of the pins. This is going to take me a while to track this down, so I think I'm going to call it the end for this video. So, sorry to leave you hanging like that. I really had planned on finishing it up today, but as you can hear, I'm not to that point yet. So, thanks for watching. Like it if you like it, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.